Let me tell you about two guys who used to live in my old neighborhood. We'll call them Dave and Arthur. Both of these guys worked at the same mid-sized logistics company for over 20 years. They had nearly identical job titles, earned roughly the same middle-class salary, and lived in similar three-bedroom houses. But when they both hit their 60th birthdays, their lives looked completely different. Dave was spending his Tuesday afternoons out on the lake in a paid-off pontoon boat, completely stress-free. Arthur, on the other hand, was losing sleep, constantly refreshing his bank app, and terrified that he might get included in the company's next round of corporate layoffs because he desperately needed his paycheck just to keep the lights on. What was the difference? It wasn't a massive inheritance. It wasn't some lucky lottery ticket. It was their daily habits. Today, we are breaking down the 8 distinct habits that separate the rich at 60 from the broke at 60. We aren't talking about complicated Wall Street hedge fund strategies here. We are talking about the quiet, everyday choices you make in your 40s and 50s that either build a fortress of wealth or slowly drain your accounts dry. Just a quick reminder before we dive in. This video is for general education, not personalized financial advice. Everyone's situation is completely different, so always do your own math and consult with a pro for your specific needs. Let's get into it. Number 8. The set it and forget it mindset versus the leftovers strategy. Let's start with the most foundational habit of all: how you actually save your money. The people who end up rich at 60 treat their savings and investments like a mandatory monthly tax. They automate everything. The day their paycheck hits their checking account, a portion is instantly routed into their 401(k), their IRA, or their brokerage account before they even have a chance to look at it. The folks who end up broke at 60 rely on what I call the leftovers strategy. A woman I'll call Karen used this method for years. Karen would get paid, pay her bills, buy her groceries, go out to eat, and promise herself that she would invest whatever was left over at the end of the month. The problem? There are never any leftovers. Life always finds a way to absorb whatever cash is sitting in your checking account. A broken water heater, a fun weekend trip, a new pair of shoes, it always vanishes. The rich habit is forcing your money to work for you automatically. If you have to rely on your own willpower every single month to manually transfer money into your savings, you are playing a losing game. Automate your wealth. Number 7. Ignoring the Joneses versus constant lifestyle creep. This is a trap that catches a lot of high-income earners. Have you ever noticed that a lot of millionaires drive 10-year-old Toyotas or Hondas? That isn't a coincidence. The broke habit is allowing your lifestyle to creep up every single time you get a raise. A guy I know named Robert got a fantastic promotion at 45. Instead of routing that extra $1 a month into his investments, he immediately leased a luxury truck, bought a bigger TV, and started taking expensive vacations. He looked incredibly rich to his neighbors, but his net worth was barely moving. The rich habit is intentionally maintaining a comfortable, moderate lifestyle even as your income grows. By keeping their fixed expenses relatively low, they create a massive gap between what they earn and what they spend. That gap is the exact money used to buy their freedom at 60. You have to decide if you want to look wealthy to strangers at the stoplight, or if you actually want to be wealthy when it's time to retire. Number 6. Closing the bank of mom and dad versus endlessly funding adult kids. We all want to help our kids. It is a natural parental instinct to want to smooth out the bumps in the road for them. But if you are aiming for an early retirement, continuing to financially support your adult children is a massive leak in your financial boat. If you are paying for your adult child's cell phone plan, keeping them on your car insurance, helping out with their rent, or bailing them out of credit card debt, you are directly jeopardizing your own ability to stop working. I know a guy. Let's call him Gary. Gary was 58 and desperately wanted to retire at 60. But Gary was also slipping his 26-year-old son $400 a month to help with an apartment lease, plus paying for his car insurance. Gary thought, "It's just a few $100, no big deal." But in the critical final years of compound interest before retirement, that money is vital. Many people find that giving away even a few $100s a month over a decade can equal tens of thousands of dollars in lost compound growth. More importantly, it artificially inflates your living expenses right when you need to be slimming them down. Securing your own retirement is actually the best gift you can give your kids, because it guarantees you won't become a financial burden to them later in life. Number 5. Doing a dry run budget versus relying on guesswork. One of the most dangerous things you can do when planning for a 60-year-old retirement is assuming your expenses will just naturally drop the minute you stop working. People often tell themselves, "Well, I won't be commuting, I won't be buying work clothes, and I won't be eating lunch out by the office. My expenses will definitely go down." They rely on a guesswork budget. But here is the reality of early retirement. Every single day is a Saturday, and what do you do on Saturdays? You spend money. A guy I know named Mark retired early and figured his expenses would plummet. Instead, he joined a golf league, started taking his wife on more road trips, and finally had time to tackle expensive home DIY projects. Many early retirees find that they actually spend 100% or more of their pre-retirement income in those first few active go-go years of retirement. The wealthy habit is doing a dry run. A dry run means living strictly on your anticipated retirement income for 6 full months while you are still working. If you find yourself constantly dipping into your current paycheck to cover shortfalls, your early retirement math is broken. Test it before you quit. Number 4. Slaying the debt dragon versus dragging it across the finish line. When it comes to early retirement, cash flow is king. It's not just about how much money you have saved. It's about how much money is required to leave your checking account every single month just to keep the lights on. If you are heading towards 60 and you still have significant high-interest credit card debt, large auto loans, or you recently refinanced into a brand new 30-year mortgage, retiring at 60 is going to be an incredibly stressful uphill battle. Let's look at a woman I'll call Brenda. Brenda had a decent nest egg and wanted to retire at 60. But at 58, she decided to do a massive kitchen remodel and refinanced her house into a new 30-year mortgage to pay for it. She thought her nest egg was big enough to handle it, but once she stopped getting a paycheck, she realized that pulling money out of her investments just to pay the bank interest was draining her accounts far faster than she anticipated. Housing often makes up roughly 30 to 40% of a retiree's budget. Debt requires mandatory monthly withdrawals from your portfolio, regardless of what the stock market is doing. The rich habit is working a few extra years if necessary to wipe the slate clean before pulling the plug on a career. Number 3. Pricing out the healthcare gap versus hoping for the best. This is often the single biggest blind spot for early retirees in the United States. Medicare does not kick in until you turn 65. If you retire at 60, you are staring down a 5-year window where you are entirely on your own for health insurance. When you are working, your employer is likely subsidizing a huge chunk of your health insurance premiums. When you retire early, you are suddenly footing the whole bill yourself. Take a couple I'll call Tom and Linda. They retired at 60, healthy and active. They budgeted for groceries, utilities, and travel, but completely forgot to price out private health insurance. When they went to the marketplace, they experienced severe sticker shock. A common range for a couple in their early 60s, buying private insurance, can easily be somewhere around $500 to over $2,000 a month in premiums, depending on where they live and the coverage level. And that's before paying high deductibles. If your retirement budget doesn't have a massive, glaring line item dedicated strictly to healthcare car costs between the ages of 60 and 65, your plan is on shaky ground. The rich habit is researching marketplace plans and subsidies well before handing in a resignation. Number 2. Avoiding the Goldilocks trap in investing. As you approach early retirement, your portfolio needs to be just right. If it's too aggressive or too conservative, you are setting yourself up for failure. I call this the Goldilocks trap. If you are 100% invested in volatile growth stocks because you want to maximize your returns right up to the finish line, you are exposing yourself to sequence of returns risk. Imagine a guy named Dave who planned to retire at 60. The year he turned 59, the stock market took a massive 20% hit. Because Dave was overly aggressive, his portfolio was decimated, right before he needed to start selling off his shares for income. Selling investments when they are down to pay for groceries locks in those losses permanently. On the flip side, imagine Sarah. Sarah got terrified of a market crash, so at 55 she moved almost all her money into cash and super safe, low-yield savings. She avoided a market crash, but she triggered a different danger: inflation risk. If you retire at 60, you might easily live to be 90. That is 30 years of inflation eating away at your purchasing power. Historically, a balanced approach is often somewhere around a 60-40 mix of stocks to bonds for new retirees, though everyone's ideal mix is completely different based on their goals. You need growth to fight inflation, but you need stability to protect against immediate market crashes. Number 1. Using a bridge account versus leaning on early Social Security. Finally, let's talk about a foundational piece of the retirement puzzle: Social Security. If your plan to retire at 60 relies heavily on getting a monthly check from the government right out of the gate, you have a massive roadblock ahead of you. Simply put, you cannot claim Social Security retirement benefits at age 60. The earliest you can claim them is age 62. That leaves you with a 2-year gap where you have to fund 100% of your life from your own savings, investments, or part-time work. But even at 62, there is a catch. Claiming your benefits as early as possible permanently reduces your monthly payout. A woman I'll call Susan found this out the hard way. She planned to just barely scrape by on her savings for 2 years, and then immediately claim Social Security at 62. If your full retirement age is 67, claiming at 62 often results in a permanent reduction of around 30% of your monthly benefit. For Susan, that meant hundreds of dollars less every single month for the rest of her life, which entirely threw off her long-term budget. The rich habit is building a solid bridge account, meaning cash and safe savings that can comfortably carry you not just to 62, but potentially to your full retirement age, so you have the flexibility to let your Social Security benefits grow. Now, let's take a collective deep breath. I know looking at a list like this can feel a little overwhelming, maybe even a little discouraging. But I want to remind you that not every single situation is exactly the same. These are general red flags, not definitive death sentences for your retirement dreams. Some people can retire with a mortgage and do just fine. Others might find clever, inexpensive ways to bridge the healthcare gap. The purpose of this general education is just to help you identify the blind spots in your plan before you actually drive off the cliff. Individual circumstances always vary, and if you are feeling unsure, sitting down with a fee-only fiduciary financial planner can do wonders for your peace of mind. The fact that you are actively thinking about this, watching videos, and planning ahead means you are already miles ahead of the pack. You have the time and the power to make adjustments today that will totally transform your tomorrow. Building these rich habits now can absolutely help you retire more comfortably when the time comes. If you found this video helpful, please do me a favor and hit that like button. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss our upcoming videos on how to protect your nest egg. And before you go, drop down into the comments and let me know which of these 8 habits hit closest to home for you. Was it the healthcare gap or maybe the dry run budget? Let's talk about it down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.